The drunk driver who hit a pedestrian and crashed into a fuel pump makes her first appearance in court and pleads no contest to the charges. KNEB.TV News starts right now.
From your trusted source for news in western Nebraska and eastern Wyoming, this is KNEB.TV News. Presented by Platte Valley Companies, premier provider of financial services.
Hello, I'm Ryan Murphy. This is KNEB.TV News powered by Platte Valley Companies. Thanks for joining me. In our top story, a Terrytown woman who struck a pedestrian during a Tuesday night drunk driving accident has pleaded no contest to her charges. 62-year-old Renee Mueller-Fike was backing up from a parking stall at a gas station on 20th Street in Scottsbluff. She struck 49-year-old Brent Creeling, who was standing next to his motorcycle, and she continued to back into and over a gas pump. On Wednesday, she pleaded no contest to charges of DUI, more than .15, and no operator's license. She'll be back in court on November 1st for sentencing and restitution. Well, a Project Harmony report out of Omaha has led to a no contest plea from a Gehring man for child abuse. 38-year-old Eduardo Salinas Jr. was initially charged with 9 felonies, 4 of them, including sexual assault of a child more than 12, less than 16, as well as knowing and intentional child abuse. Court records say during a November capstone interview, the victim went into great detail describing how Salinas abused her, and she was finally tired of bottling everything up. Last week in district court, he pleaded no contest to a single Class 3A felony charge of child abuse. He faces up to 3 years in prison and the possibility of registering as a sex offender when he's sentenced on October 26th. And lightning is believed to have been the cause of a fire that burned up several hundred bales of hay north of Scottsbluff Monday night. Scottsbluff Rural was called to the scene shortly after 6:30 p.m., finding a large stack of bales burning along Lake Minutair Road and County Road 22. Chief Carissa Shank tells KNEB News the Gehring Rural and Mitchell Volunteer Fire Departments responded with mutual aid, and an estimated 319 hay bales had been destroyed at a loss of $100,000. Shank says a neighbor told fire officials they thought they saw lightning strike shortly before the fire started. We'll have more news right after this.
Looking for free instead of fees? Platte Valley Bank can help you keep your finances moving forward with no ATM fees. Whether you're headed to the lake, the mountains, or just to the grocery store, you can enjoy the freedom of free ATM access anywhere, anytime. Platte Valley Bank. You belong here.
Welcome back. This week, Governor Jim Pillen is leading a delegation to South Korea and Japan aimed at growing trade opportunities that will benefit Nebraska. Other members of the team include Nebraska Department of Agriculture Director Sherry Vinton, as well as ag-related businesses and representatives from state government. Pillen says South Korea and Japan are tremendous consumers of Nebraska agriculture products, and this visit will strengthen our already well-established partnerships. The trade mission will include visits to hydrogen facilities, engineering corporations, and meetings with South Korean and Japanese officials. Well, beginning this week, Regional West Community Health's Immunization Clinic is transferring its immunization services to Panhandle Public Health District. PPHD offers walk-in and scheduled immunization appointments at their West 16th location in Scottsbluff, as well as on-site immunization clinics at work sites and schools. Regional West will continue to provide immunizations during scheduled medical appointments with Regional West Physician Clinic physicians and providers. For more information, contact PPHD at 633-2866.
At Renewal by Andersen, they make the best windows and patio doors you can get. But they've also set the gold standard for service. At Renewal by Andersen, their signature service is second to none.
It's old school quality. This type of service doesn't exist outside of Renewal.
Renewal by Andersen's signature service, trust, respect, care. Renewal by Andersen. You'll be delighted like so many others are. Visit rbawyoming.com now to book your free estimate.
Now, sports from the FNBO Sports Desk. FNBO, the great big small bank.
A busy few days ahead for area teams, and we're going to have some broadcasts as well coming up here on the Rural Radio Network. Let's get to today's update. We're going to start with a pair of football games here in the region. Minotero off a win last week. They're hosting Banner County tonight. That one's set to kick off at 7 o'clock. And you've got Potter Dix, that team averaging 71 points per game in their 2 wins to start the season. They'll play at 0-1. Hay Springs. Tomorrow, we'll have a pair of broadcasts. Both our Class B teams hitting the road for out-of-state contests. Scotts Bluff, they've been impressive in wins over Pius and North Platte. Now the return trip to play at 0-2, Frederick, Colorado. Pre-game tomorrow night on 107.3. The Trail will start at 6:30. For the Gering Bulldogs, it's time to bounce back, and they'll have to pick up a road win to leave the weekend over 500. The Dogs lost to Chadron last week, now heading to 1-0 Douglas, Wyoming. And pregame tomorrow for that one also at 6:30 on KMOR. Both our games tomorrow night will kick off at 7 o'clock. The WNCC volleyball team, well, they're aiming for a big rebound this weekend after they went 0-4 in matches out at the Salt Lake City Invite last weekend. Competition figures to be pretty stout again tomorrow and Saturday in Sterling, Colorado. They'll open against Snow College before a rematch with Indian Hills in the afternoon. Then on Saturday, New Mexico Military and Dodge City. The Cougars right now at 5-5 will have 3 of the 4 matches this weekend with Chuck Schwartz on KOLT 690, 101.7. Some other prep events today and throughout the weekend. A lot of volleyball around the region tonight. Scotts Bluff at home, Gering's on the road. Elsewhere, triangulars at Mitchell, Hemmingford, and Garden County. Baird with a home match against Gordon Rushville. Girls golf today, that's at the Mitchell Invite. And softball on Saturday, it's the Twin Cities Invite coming up, a one-day only for that big event, Twin Cities Invite softball on Saturday. That'll do it for today. The latest from right here at the FNBO Sports Desk. I'm Chris Cottrell.
Morrill County Community Hospital and the behavioral health providers are here to help. Amber Dean specializes in mental health care, which includes medication and therapy across a person's lifespan. Melody Lacey helps people deal with a wide range of behavioral problems, from depression and anxiety to child psychiatry. Our dedicated team is committed to you and our community every time. At Morrill County Community Hospital, Bridgeport, Nebraska. Exceptional care right here at home.
Let's take a look at your community calendar, brought to you by Riverstone Bank. The community calendar is brought to you by Riverstone Bank. We're local and we love our community.
Tired of feeling stuck? Not sure if you are on the right track? Platte Valley Bank can help keep your finances moving forward with checking account options to fit your lifestyle and an online account chooser to make finding the right account easy. Control your financial future with helpful budgeting tools and automatic savings plans. Now is the time to enjoy the ride with Platte Valley Bank. You belong here.
I'm Jason Jorgensen. It is once again time for another edition of Huskerchat. It's brought to you by Acres Equipment. As always, we are joined by the publisher of Husker Online, Sean Callahan, as we take a look back at Nebraska's loss against Minnesota and then a huge game coming up this Saturday morning at Colorado. Sean, thanks a lot for the time. I don't know how many times we've had conversations talking about near misses for Nebraska. I don't know how many more this fan base can take, but boy, Thursday had to be just so frustrating because Nebraska once again was right there, but unable to finish.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of the same old. I mean, they had complete control of the game. It felt like, gosh, they'd have to really try hard to figure out a way to lose this game. And that's what they did. I mean, Anthony Grant fumbles on a 9-yard run that if they get the first down, that's another couple minutes of clock off the game. And worst case scenario is you're punting the ball back to Minnesota eventually deep into their own territory, and they've got to go to the length of the field to get 7 on you, which they had not done the whole half. Then even when they fumbled it, you're like, okay, worst case scenario is overtime. Then Jeff Sims throws the pick. So there was just so much about the way that game finished out. It was very tough to see Nebraska slip away an opportunity like that, even though nobody really was picking Nebraska to win this game. But I think when you watch it, you're like, well, Nebraska should win this game.
Now, certainly there's some positives to take out of it. I would think one of the biggest positives had to be the play of the defense. It looked like Tony White has certainly continued the improvement of that bunch made toward the second half of last year.
Yeah, I thought the tackling was outstanding. The physicality was great. And it really goes back to how they practice. I mean, you're seeing Nebraska do more good on good live work during the week. And you heard Ethan Piper this week say, he goes, our practices are harder than the game. And that's how Matt Rule wants it. So I do think their weekly approach, how Matt Rule attacks it, I think that's made a difference just with how it looked, at least in this first game out. And Nebraska is going to play physical. I mean, we saw that. And the defense was a real bright spot. I thought special teams play and the tackling, I mean, 3 different kickoff return attempts didn't cross the 20-yard line for Minnesota. And they did a very good job in punt coverage and other elements of special teams as well.
How about the offense? That's where they certainly struggled. It didn't help that Jeff Sims struggled, throwing 3 interceptions. Were you surprised to see Nebraska have the issues they had moving the ball? I mean, I know Minnesota has a nice defense, but I would think you had to hope the Huskers could move it a little better than that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the throwing struggle. I mean, they ran for 200 plus yards of sack adjusted rush yards. I mean, that should win you a game like Minnesota. And you look at what Sims gave them, and then the backs, it was 200 plus yards. Take away the sacks, but Minnesota was dropping 7-8 guys a lot, and Sims had a hard time fitting the ball through the windows and seeing the field. And he tried to force some things, and we saw what happened. It was 3 interceptions on balls that he kind of tried to force in there. And that was surprising. It was very surprising to me that Billy Kemp was not involved in the game with 1 catch. Thomas Fedoni did not have a ball targeted his way. I mean, there's some things offensively that if Nebraska wants to get better as a team, they've got to be a little bit more complete with their offensive attack.
I know they said preseason, Rule had said they didn't want to run Sims all the time, but there were big chunks of that game that was their top option.
Yeah, Sims is a dynamic athlete, and his 100 yards rushing that he had was the most impressive stat line for really any player in that game offensively. I mean, he was probably, as a runner, as good of any player in the game. Unfortunately, his throwing mistakes are what cost Nebraska the game, and they've got to kind of figure out the perfect balance. They called 12 design runs for him in that game. And then he had 2 scramble runs where he took off and scrambled, and then he had the sack. So, but 12 design runs, probably a little bit on the heavy side. I would think that they'd probably like that number down more like 7 or 8 per game. But the way that game dictated, they needed those runs, every bit of them.
This is Husker Chat. We're talking with Sean Callahan from Husker Online. It's brought to you by Acres Equipment. All right, Minnesota's in the rearview mirror. Now the matchup with Colorado. I think a lot of Husker fans might have been shocked and pretty disappointed to see how good Colorado looked on Saturday against TCU. Right out of the gate, Deion Sanders has provided Colorado something they haven't had in a while.
Yeah, they completely flipped that roster, obviously brought in all new coaches, and to get that team ready to go on the road against the team that was runner-up for the national title. Now, granted, they lost a lot from a year ago, TCU, but they went in there as a 24-point dog and won straight up. Boy, you wish you would have put $10 on that because it would have paid out pretty well. But Colorado, just the way they played, I don't think anybody saw that coming. And the way they looked on offense, I mean, they made it look like a 7-on-7 game. And I think for Nebraska this week, that's the key. They cannot let this be a 7-on-7 game. They've got to play Big Ten bully football, push the line of scrimmage, use their physical size to an advantage. Because if they try to make this a game in space, they're not going to win in Boulder.
Now, do you think the Huskers have the offensive line and the running game to do that, to slow this thing down, to limit possessions? Because from what we saw against Minnesota, Nebraska still has some issues up front.
I do. I mean, I think TCU did not go at them that way. And I think Nebraska with Jeff Sims, Gabe Ervin Jr., they're going to go downhill at Colorado and test their teeth because TCU didn't really do that at a high level. for Nebraska to win this game, they've got to slow it down a little bit and just give body blows to Colorado, make them really play defense and try to fight in the trenches. Because in the end, I think that's their ticket to a victory right now.
You have been to plenty of Nebraska-Colorado games. You looking forward to this trip? I would think that's just going to be a crazy environment come Saturday morning.
I'll tell you, they caught a break, though. 10 a.m. local kick. That for a road team coming in, that's ideal because it's just going to be pretty hard to get that crowd in there ready to roll that early. If this was a night game, oh my gosh, I don't even want to guess what it would be like. I think you'll see a lot of red in that stadium. A lot of people really from Kearney on west. I mean, it's a pretty reasonable drive to Boulder. And for years and years and years, people in the western part of the state of Nebraska would go to Boulder. And I think a lot of those fans have already bought their tickets and they're going to be out there. And we saw it was over 65% Husker fans in 2019. I don't know if it's going to be quite that much, but I do think Nebraska will get a big chunk in that stadium again.
All right, we'll see how it develops on Saturday. Sean, as always, we appreciate the time. Have a safe trip out west.
Thanks, Jason.
And that was Sean Callahan, the publisher of Husker Online, joining us for Husker Chat. We're here every week throughout the season, and it's brought to you by Acres Equipment.
And finally tonight, one of the City of Scottsbluff's most valuable employees was recognized by the City Council Tuesday evening. Liz Lutzenheiser has been serving as Scottsville's finance director for the past 8 years and even served as co-interim city manager for a stretch in 2022. In July, she accepted a new position in the private sector, and the council and Mayor Jeannie McCarrigan took the time to honor her for her years of work before her departure at the end of this month.
I just wanted to thank you for your years of service. You've done such a great job. You've kept us in great financial condition, and we will definitely miss you.
Scottsville City Manager Kevin Spencer says that Lutzenheiser left the city in great financial position and wishes her the best of luck in her next chapter. Well, that does it for us this time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. We'll see you here next time.